Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Canada True Vision Cyber Club branch, I would like to extend a warm welcome to each of you for attending this very special presentation. Tonight, we are honored to feature the 11 brave blind mountaineers of Mount Kilmarjaro, whose accomplishment and courage inspire us all. My name is Lion Christina Engel-Jackowitz, and I have the honor of serving as president of the Canada True Vision Cyber Club branch. Before we begin the main presentation, I would like to share some information with you about our Lions Club. 100 years ago, Helen Keller challenged the Lions at the International Convention to become the Knights of the Blind, a call that has shaped our mission ever since. Our club was founded to provide opportunities for participation that go beyond the individual challenges, encouraging everyone to embrace their unique perspectives on this world. Our membership extends across Canada, from British Columbia in the west and Newfoundland in the east. At present, we proudly include members in 4 provinces: British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, and Newfoundland. We are dedicated to encouraging individuals who are blind or visually impaired, as well as those facing other challenges, alongside sighted individuals, to embark on our Lions cyber journey together. Our doors are open for new members from across Canada, whether you're an existing Lion or you're new to Lions. Together, we share our experiences, offer support, and raise awareness for both the challenges and successes within our blind community, and sharing these stories within the Lions family. This presentation will be recorded and made available for those unable to attend this evening. If you would like to request a copy, please contact the club by email, and we will provide you a copy. And with that, I would like to introduce you to my friend Lion David Burnett. Go ahead, David.
David, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Now, I'm unmuted now. I knew I shouldn't have muted myself in the first place. Well, thank you very much, Lion Christina, for inviting the Canadian contingent of the Brave Blind Mountaineers of Kilmarjaro to speak tonight. We do have on the call some of our United States friends who were with us. I won't be introducing them, but I just wanted to acknowledge that some of them are here with us. I'm David Burnett of the Aurora Lions Club, the current president. I'm also associate member of the Canadian True Vision. And together with Peter Quietini, who's with us tonight, whom I'm going to introduce later, we started up with an idea which we thought would be a good idea. And like, how difficult could it be? Big mountain, just climb it. Not a problem at all. However, as one of our United States climbers said, this was Joan Holcomb, said, I've been and climbed to the base camp of Mount Everest. This climb here is more difficult for sure. Mount Kilimanjaro is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. It's the highest mountain in Africa, standing at 19,000 feet. And although I did not go on that trip, I have to say that the highlight of my trip was receiving a satellite link call from the top of the mountain on Tuesday, October the 7th at 7 o'clock in the morning when the team had made it. So let's start with an introduction of the Canadian contingent. And we'll start with the one-sighted Canadian who is with us and who will also be our color commentator today, helping with the pictures that will be put up. Audrey Tullio. it's over to you and let her rip.
Okay, thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Audrey Troyo. I live in Toronto, Ontario. I'm actually a tax accountant. And how I learned about this trip was my fiance, Talha, who you'll hear from in a bit, was initially invited by David Burnett and team to sort of take on this endeavor. And me personally, I've always been an adventurous person, always looking to try new things. And I thought that this was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So just to describe my photo, this was taken at me at like the moorland levels on day 2, which is more of a drier climate and is just above like the rainforest, which you can see in the background. And it's overlooking another mountain in Tanzania called Mount Meru, which is another popular mountain visited by people in Tanzania. And before I start, like you'll notice that a lot of the presenters that will be speaking today are wearing these orange shirts. So just to describe the shirts, which Tal will sort of show, it says on the front, Mount Kilimanjaro, I did it, ... with my eyes closed. And it sort of shows the summit of the Uhuru Peak and also some giraffes and trees. And then at the bottom, it says brave blind mountaineers of Kilmarjaro 2025. And then on the back of our shirts, it says, what will your next adventure be? As well as our sponsor for these shirts, which is One Fluent. They were kind enough to sponsor the shirts for this trip. So thank you to them for that. Okay, Dave, back to you.
All righty, and let's now introduce my co-partner in crime, Peter Quietini from Calgary.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Dave said, I'm Peter Quietini. I live in Calgary, Alberta. Let's see. I'm retired from a 32-year career in IT at the CPR and happily retired. But that doesn't mean I'm not busy. At the moment, I'm president of Ski for Light Canada, and we're busy planning the 2026 event, which all of you should sign up for. I also do a fair amount of advocacy work for persons with vision loss. In particular, I volunteer with the City of Calgary on their advisory committee for accessibility, as well as a number of other advocacy initiatives. I guess my personal trip highlight, let me see here. Well, or what stood out for me, I think, was just the amount of perseverance and the amount of day after day of work. Just those 7 days, just unrelenting. Every day was exhausting, and there was just another day after that. Yet there was a real sense of accomplishment and a real sense of fatigue after it all. Anyways, so that's my trip highlight is the accomplishment and the fatigue.
You finished there, Peter?
I am all done.
All right, let's hear from Jack.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jack. I am calling in from Toronto, Ontario. Great to be here tonight. In sort of my daily life, I am a human resources manager working in the tech industry. And when I'm not climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I like to keep quite active, and am a marathon runner. I was told signing up for this trip that climbing Kilimanjaro, if you can, walk 10K in a day, that you'll be able to do it. So I went into it thinking it'd be pretty easy, having ran a marathon earlier this year, and I'll tell you, I would much rather run a marathon than climb Kilimanjaro. It was very tough, and so that's really what stood out for me.
And let's hear from someone many of you know, Tammy Adams.
Hi, it's Tammy here. I'm from Toronto. I'm completely blind. I'm currently on the TTC board as an accessibility consultant. I am also in the Blind Achilles group where we run and walk. So like Jack, I thought all my training I would be completely prepared for the mountain, but the mountain was had ideas of her own, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was the most challenging thing I've ever done. Yeah, so that's me.
And so let's now move to Desiree out in the Alberta area.
Hi everyone, my name is Desiree. I'm from Lacombe, so in between Calgary and Edmonton, so kind of in the middle of nowhere. I am a person who loves to go on adventure. So when I heard about Kilimanjaro, I decided it would be a bucket list item that I've had on my bucket list for a while, and it would be fun to finally be able to knock it off the bucket list.
And how about you, Dave? You're the last one on, so you get to speak last.
Okay, it's David Brown. I was keen to go when my friends Peter and Dave invited me to go on this adventure. I quickly thought about doing something philanthropic associated with the trip, so we'll mention that a little bit later. A lot of you may know me from the Blind Sailing Club in Toronto and blind hockey teams and stuff like that. But the philanthropic part was sort of one of my highlights. Same sentiments about the trip as everybody else.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So this idea started up about a little before COVID, and when COVID came, it killed my dream and my idea of going to Africa and climbing the highest mountain. But out on 2 winters ago on a Ski for Light cross country skiing venture where I ended up out there without any skis, believe that or not. I met up with a fellow from Denmark, Sven Mogensen, who also didn't have any skis with him because Air Canada had failed to send them. And we went down to Kananaskis village to find some rentals. And at the same time, I found out that Sven had recently climbed the mountain just before COVID. And listening to him and hearing that, hey, man, you can do it. A lot of encouragement. The flame was rekindled. And so I talked to my partner in crime, Peter Q, and said, hey, man, let's put together this little venture. It shouldn't be too difficult. We get a handful of blind guys and maybe a handful of sighted guys, a small team. We'll put her together and make it happen. But as we talked about it, we thought, well, if we're going to Africa, why don't we go on a safari? Yeah, let's do a safari. And then we started talking about, hey, let's go to Zanzibar afterwards and really make an adventure of it. But as the word spread, many more people wanted to come, and we just kept expanding and expanding the number of blind people who wanted to come. And even some of them who wanted to come couldn't come because one of them broke his leg doing alpine skiing out west, and another one had some medical problems. But at the end of the day, it looked like our team was going to be 12 blind adventurers and 6 sight adventurers to go with us. So we reached out to our friends in the United States, and they came on board to add to our numbers, and they were a really good asset. Walt Rainery from California had the bright idea of, hey, when we go up the mountain, why don't we take a Starlink satellite connection and communicate from the mountain? He also thought, why don't we see if we could get into the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest number of blind people to climb the mountain? But when we checked out about the Guinness Book of World Records and they wanted 20 grand just to get started, we said, nuts to that, we don't have that money. But another idea that came was, why don't we just document our adventure? And one of our other climbers, Mike McCulloch from down in Houston, knew a documentarian, Crocky McCracken, who had already worked with visually impaired people doing documentaries, and we signed him up and he came along. Again, going back to Walt was great because he drew up all the legal documents to have a professional documentarian come and join us. So we were very fortunate knowing Sven. He connected us with a fellow named Lars Forshan, who was a tour consultant, who knew a good tour guiding company in Tanzania, Nana Safaris. They were the ones on the ground who were going to organize the support staff, the equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And in the lead up to all of this, We had several Zoom calls with all of us on the line to go over the items of it. But no matter how many times we went over it, whether it be equipment, vaccinations, visas, and things like that, we never could appreciate how challenging and difficult it was going to be. That seemed to be something that we couldn't get through our heads. So that's enough of the genesis of it. Let's go to Peter, who's going to take on and talk about the support and things like that. Go, Peter.
Yeah, sure. Dave, thanks for that great coverage, and good you noted about you forgot your skis for the ski trip. That's clever.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. All right. So yeah, as Dave really presented that well. Dave and Sven, while going ski shopping, got talking about Kilimanjaro, and then it kind of went, that old commercial, and they told two friends, and they told two friends, and so on and so on. It kind of grew like that. Um, and so Sven hooked us up with Lars Forsholt in Denmark. And I'm repeating just a bit of what Dave said here, but just because I'm sure you all weren't paying attention. And Lars works with Nana Safari's Idrissa Abel, who is the local guy in Tanzania. And so between the two of them, they put together a great package for us, both on the mountain and safari-wise. Um, but what I really had no idea was the team that would be behind us, getting us up the mountain. So as it turned out, there were 16 of us, 16 of us tourists who set out from the park gate to summit the mountain, and it just shocked me to learn that the team of local people of local Tanzanians supporting us was in excess of 80, as in 80, which just boggled my mind. I mean, part of that, of course, each blind and visually impaired person had a dedicated guide, which, of course, wouldn't be necessary in a fully sighted trip. But nevertheless, that's still a sizable number of people. So you put the whole number together, and there's upwards of 100 people moving up and down the mountain. Really a small village. Um, so that was mighty impressive, and that 80 consists of people like I would say guides, and camp managers, and lots of porters, and porters are the people who do the real work. They carry all of our stuff up and down the mountain, tents and backpacks and food and water and whatever. So there's a lot of them. There's a porta potty porter, if I got all that number of portos right. Um, and the tourism industry is really a very big economic contributor to the Tanzanian economy. Particularly for the mountain and for safaris. So if we're employing 80 people, that's a lot of families and people that we're helping to support. And it was interesting. I learned that a porter earns $8 a day on the mountain. So they were there for 9 days. So it's at $72, carrying my stuff up and down the mountain. Anyways, they also earn money through tips, where there's also tips that come after, but just the value of dollars is just so much different there than here, of course. I guess that really kind of summarizes how sort of the background and the infrastructure that helped to make this happen. Audrey, are there any pictures you want to describe?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as Peter mentioned, this is just a glimpse of like the porters and the staff getting ready at the start of our trip. You can just see the sheer amount of people here with all of the backpacks and chairs and other equipment that they need to carry up. So it really is a large team effort. This is Adriza and Lars, who Peter had mentioned, and helped organize this trip. Just giving us a little intro, and then this is just an example of how like the porters would carry the equipment up as they from camp to camp.
Yeah, great. Thanks,
Okay, well,
Ryan.
let's hear from Jack, who's going to tell us about a day on the slopes.
Yeah, and I think we should call out too that the porters carry the bags on their heads. It's quite the sight to be held. Um, so I've been asked to kind of share what the typical day on the mountain is. And when Peter put together our first draft of the agenda for this, he labeled this section eating, sleeping, and pooping. And David Barnett was kind enough on our call this Tuesday to offer to buy me a drink every time I said pooping during this section. So I'm really going to hold him to that. I hope someone can count for me.
Here
Um,
now.
um, anyway. The typical day climbing Kilimanjaro, I had experience doing some, backcountry camping. And so when we were, in the hotel packing our bags before the trip, I was really shocked when Lars came to our hotel rooms and told me to take probably 30 to 50% of the stuff that I had in my day pack, the backpack you carry with you out of my bag and put it into the bag that the porter was carrying. And I was like, wow, like what kind of luxury is this? Someone's carrying most of my stuff. So in your bag, you typically just have water, some snacks, a warm layer, and stuff to protect you from the rain. Um, but I soon realized as we progressed on the trip, and others will tell you about this, it was really hard, and there was a reason the porters were carrying so much for it, much harder than I expected. So our sleeping arrangements was depending the person a two-person or one-person tent. The tents were the same size, regardless if it was one or two people in it. But they were quite sizable tents to be in the middle of nowhere. And you had a nice sleeping mat, a little like blow-up mat pad, and a sleeping bag. And I used my winter jacket. I kind of folded it up into a ball and used that as a pillow. I was shocked by how cold it got at night. I thought at least at the first camp it would be kind of warm at night because it was so hot when we started. But I'll tell you, every night was freezing cold. We experienced very, below zero temperatures and even snow on the trip. We would get woken up generally sometime around 6 a.m. I forget the exact time, and go to our dining tent. And again, I was expecting, to be sitting on the ground, no tent, eating meals. This was quite the experience. They carried up a big dining tent for all 16 of us to sit in. It had, walls and zippered doors so we could stay warm when it got cold at night. It had a table in it, and it had, camp chairs and like real plastic plates to eat off of and metal utensils. So it was really quite a pleasant experience. Our typical meals were, pretty hearty but simple food. So breakfast was, porridge, toast, sausages, eggs, and fresh fruit typically. Every meal was served with hot tea and coffee because the warm drinks really helped us stay warm throughout the day. And then lunch and dinner was typically, some kind of meat, and then either some kind of rice, pasta, or potato, some vegetables, and some fresh fruit. We ate, much better than I expected on the trip, and we really did need the constant calorie intake because it was so exhausting. And then the typical day in between meals was hiking. So each blind person had their own personal guide, and each person had their own way of being guided. I personally had my guide walk in front of me with his hand on one of my hiking poles, and then I was holding the opposite end of the hiking pole so I could feel where he was stepping. And hiking meant climbing over hundreds of rocks, uphill, downhill for about 5 hours on the typical day. Then we would eat lunch, and then about another 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon before we eat and do the same thing again. But I forgot about the pooping section for my friends David Burnett and Peter.
Great.
But if you were out on the hiking and needed to go to the washroom, peeing, you just found a quiet spot and off you went, and pooping was pretty much the same thing. It was kind of hard in some places to find a private spot to do it because, it's just rocks, there's no foliage. When we were at the lunch spots and at the campsite, they did carry private toilets for us. Um, I know from speaking with others on the trip that, well, they were nice little porta potties that were carried around. They didn't leave much space, if you can get what I mean. And so I tended to only use the toilets that were provided for if I had to poo, and anything else I was doing outside. So, it was great to have that and not have to squat down on the earth every time. But yeah. That was our eating and sleeping and pooping situation. I'll pass it to the next person.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. And that was 4 times if my count was correct. So now we're going to talk about the first
Photos?
6. Pardon?
Photos?
Oh, good. Thank you, Peter. Audrey, were there any photos?
Yes, there were. So yeah, just to reiterate what Jack had described, this is an example of the various tents that were placed during our moorland day 3 trip. And then on the ground there is some frost, so it was quite cold at night. And there's no other trees to help insulate us. This picture here was taken towards the near our summit where it actually snowed the night before, and so there's a lot of snow on the ground, and then you see the porta potty in the center that we had used at our camp. This picture here is a picture of our dining hall or tent, which is with a long table, and this is where we had lunch. And here I have a picture of the outside of our dining hall, which had a little washing station and had some of our backpacks for the day. And this was just a picture of me. It happened to be my birthday, and so the chef was very gracious to bake me a cake, which was quite rare to see on the mountain. So that's it.
Yeah,
All right,
and
so
Dave,
yep,
before
sorry,
you go on,
Peter.
just
Yep.
2 things I just want to note. Yeah, and is our mess tent. They even set up our mess tent for lunch, so we weren't standing outside. At lunchtime we had a shelter, again, a hot food, whatever. So it was quite good, and it was quite amazing to see a freshly baked cake show up on Audrey's birthday. That was that was really quite impressive.
Mm.
So we're going to move about how the first 6 days went, and this is going to be covered off by Tammy and Tala. And Tammy, I think you're taking the first 2 days, aren't you?
Yes, I am. So like Burnett just mentioned, when we first arrived at the Kilmarjaro main gate, we were ready to have our lunch. It was lunchtime, but it was actually very crowded with hundreds of people, just all kinds of different groups with their porters. So we did have to wait a little bit to get a table. And we did actually meet a Canadian group that was also going up the mountain that day. So that was interesting to meet them. And so we had a pretty good lunch. We had, a hot dish, meat and pasta, if I remember. It was very nutritious. I think we even had a salad. While we were eating, we just talked excitedly about the adventure ahead. And our main consultant travel guide, Lars, went around and made sure that our day packs were not going to be too heavy. So we wouldn't tire easily. So when that was finished, we all got together and we all got to meet our personal guides, which was really exciting. My guide's name was Sam, and he told me he was a Maasai tribesman. So that was exciting. He told me a little bit about his culture. So the main language in Tanzania is Swahili. So our guides taught us a little bit of some vocabulary of Swahili just to communicate while we were hiking along. So my guide often referred to me as Dada, which is sister. It's okay, Dada, like if I fell or tripped or whatever. So he was great. And so after the introductions, we all discussed the techniques that we would like to be guided, as Jack said. Some people had enough sight that they could walk beside their guide or behind their guide. Others, like Jack, would be comfortable enough taking one end of the hiking stick, and the guide would guide him, or others with the other end. For myself, I took my guide's arm, his elbow, and then I had my hiking stick in my other hand, and that worked for me because I'm completely blind. And then I wanted to talk about, we all had these special race bibs signs that were on our day packs. And on the signs were the blind Killy climbers. And we had a nice gentleman in our group, a blind guy, Michael, who made the signs for us. So I think Tella's got a picture there of the signs. So we had that on our backpacks, just to let other climbers know that we're blind, we're vision impaired, and we're serious climbers. So after that, we took off onto our hike, and the train started off with a lot of roots. And we started to walk through the rainforest, so it started to get pretty humid. You could hear a lot of, I guess, bugs buzzing around. I could hear some tropical birds. There was a bird that sounded like a monkey. I thought it was a real monkey, but it was just a bird. That was a gradual ascent, and then it started to get rockier. So we were stepping over round rocks. And then there was some gradual ups and downs. Now, for a blind person such as myself, what I had to do is just step up quite a lot. So keep high stepping to make sure that I didn't trip over rocks or anything like that. My guide did most of the work by communicating with me. He'd say, step, step, step. If there was a large, long rock or a round rock, he'd say, step up, long or round, and so I'd know that I'd have to take a larger step. So that was about 5 or 6 hour hike. And then we stopped off for lunch. And like Peter said, we had our lunch tent. So we had our hot meal. And then sorry, that was the second day. But the first day we did 5 or 6 hours, and then we did end up at our first camp around supper time. So that was, like Jack said, the tents were pretty, lots of space, and I actually had a pretty good sleep that night. And it was really cold, like Jack said, so you had to bundle up. And we had a good dinner in the mess tent. And that night we heard something called hyrax, which are they're kind of like large rodents that they're about 8 to 13 pounds, and they were making quite a racket in the trees. So we heard that all night. And then the next morning we got up early, and we had a good breakfast, and we took off for our next day. It was around 8:30. And it was basically the same thing. We're still tracking through the rainforest. There was a lot of gradual ups and downs. And that was about 5 or 6 hours of hiking. And eventually we got to our lunch spot that I mentioned a few minutes ago, and that's where they set up the tent. So we had a good hot meal. And that's where I started to feel the altitude. It was, I think it was about 3,000 meters at that point, or close to that anyway. So at that point, I was really starting to feel it. We had our lunch, and then the afternoon, that was really challenging, because it was just all pretty much ascent for the next 5 hours, and the rocks got bigger and rounder, and some of them would actually roll under your feet. So you had to be really careful. You had to listen to your guide. But they were great guides. They took really good care of us. So yeah, so that was really challenging. That was quite a challenging hike. And each day that we got to our camp, we had to descend down a little bit. So if we walked up about, a 1,000 meters, we had to walk down a little bit to the camp, because it's easier to sleep at night, so you can get used to the altitude. So we did have to navigate down quite a descent the second day at the Shira camp. But by that time, I was getting quite sick, unfortunately, and having some trouble breathing. And I was really behind, and I got to the camp quite late. So I had a meeting with Lars, our main guide, and my personal guide, that I shouldn't be continuing any further, because I was getting pretty sick, and very behind, so I didn't want to slow anybody down. So we decided that the best action to take was for me not to continue on to the third day, unfortunately. So that was heartbreaking, and I made my announcement the next day at breakfast, unfortunately. So yeah, I had to leave the group. And the next day, it was quite a descent that I had to walk down with my guide to get to the rescue vehicle. It was very rocky. There was a lot of boulders. I fell a few times, but eventually we got to the rescue vehicle. Apparently, I passed out. I don't remember that part, because I was just so sick and exhausted. But um, I I was okay. I did make it to the hotel, and while I waited for my group, my guide kept checking in with me, and he would take me around Mushi Town each day, to learn about the culture and the food. Um, and I did unfortunately get more ill, and I had to eventually go to the hospital to get checked, um, and found out that I had pneumonia. So I was glad that I went and got antibiotics, and then I was able. The last day, I was able to join everyone for the lunch celebration. So we got reunited, and that was quite exciting to greet everybody and to celebrate with them. And that's my journey. Thanks for listening.
Well, thanks, Tammy, for that. Audrey, did we have any pictures, or do we go to tell on the next 4 days?
Yeah, so yeah, just to quickly describe, this is just a picture of the signage that Tammy was talking about that says Blind Killy Climbers on the back of two of our climbers' backpacks. This is a picture of us at the start of the rainforest with all of the climbers and their guides, surrounded by lush trees. And this is us deep in the rainforest, ascending up with all of our climbers ascending. And then lastly, we have a picture of us, of some climbers close up and in a distance, surrounded by moorlands, which are marked by dry vegetation and large rocks and valleys.
Great. Tella, what do you have to say for yourself?
All right. Firstly, I just want to say that thanks, Tammy. That was and Jack and Peter. I think you gave a really good explanation of the typical day on the mountain. For the next few days, I just wanted to talk about one or two notable things which happened on those days. So for day 3, the landscape starts to become a bit more bare. You can still see and have a picture up of there's some small trees. And day 3 is really when the altitude sickness started to hit a lot more of us. So I think Tammy and Audrey started to experience on day 2. I started to really get a bad altitude sickness on day 3. And just for context, we're starting at like 2,800 meters and we're going to 3,600. And then we're finally going up to 4,000 on this day. So altitude sickness gets everyone differently. Some of us just had, like an increased heart rate. Some of us had a headache. I had vomiting for quite a few days. But the good part was we were on some altitude sickness medication. So I think that really did help a lot of us. So day 3, I would say it was a pretty easy hike, but it was a long one. We're going up and down, as Tammy mentioned, very similar to day 2. Day 4, the landscape becomes even more bare and raw. And this is the day where we really start to feel the dust. And I knew mountains were dusty, but I did not think it would be as dusty as what it was. And on day 4, we climb up to 4,600 meters for lunch. And the climb is not that long, but you really, really do feel the altitude on this day. When we go to camp, we actually end up descending and going back to 4,000. And this is a picture of us descending, and on either side of us, it's a pretty narrow path with lots of rocks, and there's just a line of us trying to descend. On the next picture, it's really just the landscape, and here you can see just how rocky it is, and just the increase and decrease in the landscape. So at dinner, Peter actually made a pretty interesting comment, and he said, "We are climbing up the mountain. Why do we have to keep going down?" And to me and to a lot of us, going down was extraordinarily challenging. I'm partially sighted, so I can see a bit more, but I still really struggle to get my footing. But this is what you have to do to acclimatize to the altitude, and I do think that going up and down really did help us be successful on the climb. Day 5, the notable thing is what is called the Barranco Wall. And from the base of this wall, it is just a very huge and intimidating wall. It's 300 meters, and it looks like you have to basically climb straight up. But, it did take us 3 or 4 hours to do, and it was quite difficult. And there were times where we had to use our hands and knees to climb it. This is the only part of the trip where we had to do that. But I think a lot of us felt that it was quite enjoyable and not as difficult as what it looked like. And, as a visually impaired person, having more points of contact to the earth actually helped in navigating. But this is one of the few times where I think majority of us had 2 or 3 people helping us at certain points. The end of the Barranco Wall, there's something called the Kissing Rock, which is what you're seeing in this picture. And all of us are supposed to go and just kiss this rock just to mark that we accomplished this wall. I don't have a picture of this, but the Barranco Wall was also quite challenging because there were a lot of porters on it. And so we had to constantly move to the side to let those porters through. And truly, it's magnificent to see just how much raw strength these guys have to carry something on their head, which is like 15 kgs, and climb a wall like this. The last day is day 6, and like the last day before the summit is day 6. and we're going from 4,200 meters to 4,600 meters. And this was luckily a half day because the Bronco Wall day was quite challenging. And all I can remember about this day was just the camp and how rocky and steep and how difficult it was to maneuver. In this picture, you can see a whole bunch of small rocks, and it really felt like you're walking on like broken ceramic plates when you're navigating the campsite. But we were all very happy to get a bit of a half day, and we all went to sleep early because the next day was summit day. And so I'll pass it over to Desiree to talk about that.
Summit
Can
day.
I sorry, Des, I just want to jump in briefly. You mentioned the altitude medicine, and one of that reminded me sleeping at night. So I mentioned a few times it being cold, and certainly I was cold at night. Taking Diamox for the altitude, and what Diamox does is it makes you go pee. So not only are you cold at night, but two, three, four times a night, you got to get up out of your sleeping bag to go for a pee. It's like, oh my goodness. Anyways, Des, carry on.
Sorry, just to add one more point to what Peter was saying. Lars actually gave each of us a walkie-talkie, and we had 24-hour access to him. And so we would call him in the middle of the night and say, hey, help us use the washroom. Because if we didn't, a lot of us ended up going to the wrong tent on our way back from the washroom. So it was very nice of him to do that. And I think without that, a lot of us would have struggled. Sorry, Des, over to you.
It's okay. Summit day is our 7th day and our longest day with the highest altitude. So we climbed about 4,600 feet that day with a total of 18 kilometers round trip from Barafel camp to the summit and back. This morning we started at 5 a.m., a little earlier. And we are probably on the trail by 6:30 the longest. Typically, groups leave at midnight so that they're at the summit for sunrise and they get to enjoy the sunrise. However, for our sake of group, we moved the summit down to later, so we summited all in daylight. And it was a challenge because we would climb about 4,600 feet, and it was very steep back, switchbacks back and forth, and then you would hit a ridge. And then, although it didn't look like much more distance to climb, there was still a lot of climbing to do with the altitude added on top of it. So for this day, most of our porters literally or our guides carried our backpack so that we had nothing to carry that day and allowed us to climb free until we got to the summit. And then coming back down, because we all hiked at different speeds. Some of us would be hiking up to the summit while others were leaving. So it was a come and go kind of idea. We have a picture with Peter and David at with the Canadian flag on the summit. And on our way down, it was kind of shale-like sand, so it was very slippery and sliding and so forth on. So they were very kind and brought juice up to us halfway down to give us some extra energy on our way down to camp.
Anyone
Any
else?
pictures, Audrey?
Yeah.
Or Telha?
Yeah, so these are just some pictures of us coming up on the summit. It takes place in the Alpine desert, so there's very little vegetation. There are larger rocks and sand and pebbles out. And then this is just a picture of Dave Brown and Peter just at the peak with holding the Canadian flag, so representing us. And this is just a picture of sort of the glaciers and ice caps that you see at the top at the summit.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is just how challenging and Summit Day was. The altitude really does get you, and it really does make you tired. One moment I had was, I took a break, and even though I'd slept really well the night before, I just felt my eyes closing, and all I could hear was my guide yelling at me to say, stay awake, stay awake. If you fall asleep, it's going to be even harder. And once you do get to the top, you really, really feel an amazing sense of accomplishment. But it definitely a very, very challenging day and a very long day.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up just briefly on that sense of accomplishment. I was reading through the glossy, so to speak, that Lars put together for us, and so when you're at the peak, you're the tallest person within a circumference of 5,670 kilometers. There are 30 million square kilometers, 54 countries below your feet. And 5 kilometers below are the lions and giraffes and such at the in the savannah. Anyways, it's just a pretty neat picture to keep in one's mind of how tall you really are and how big an expanse you are towering over.
And I'll tell you, when Walt and Crocky set up the Starlink and phoned me back here in Toronto, I tell you how proud I was. It was like my team had been out on an expedition. They had been successful. They won, and I was just so proud of them. It was incredible how proud I was.
And it was very hard.
And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not there.
I was gonna say,
Right.
so one of the phrases that you will learn if you ever climb Kilimanjaro, for our guests here is the phrase "pole pole," and that means slowly, slowly in Swahili, and that is absolutely crucial when climbing throughout the climb, and especially on summit day, because the oxygen levels up there are rather thin, and so me personally speaking, every step I took, I had to take a full breath in and out, so it's quite challenging. So yeah, just something to keep in mind.
Well, the climb up took 7 days, but the descent down was pretty quick. So let's quickly talk about coming down. I think that's over to you, Dave Brown.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Yeah, the descent was, in a word, anticlimactic. The whole focus of our trip was to climb to the top of the mountain, but most of us found that when we got there, we were so tired, we had enough energy to jump up, down, and get excited about it. But we'd have spent like 50 kilometers hiking over 6 days to get to the base camp, another 11 kilometers zigzagging up to the summit. I think it was maybe 7 kilometers, 7 to 8 kilometers. But then we get there in early afternoon, and the guides really pushed us to get down from the summit before dark. So we had to go about 4 kilometers down in about 4.5 hours. And there was a lot of rocks in the last half kilometer to get to our camp, even when we were totally tossed to get over. So they hustled us down from the summit fairly quickly, especially with the sandy. So you'd step and slide, step and slide. One of the side effects of that, it kicked up a lot of dust. And virtually all of us ended up with some respiratory problems with the dust that we inhaled. Most of us had coughs, some had pneumonia, various other things. So the goal was to make it up, and we had a great job having 9 of us make it to the top and get the world record. But we had to get back down and get down safely. And like Audrey mentioned, pole. Well, on that summit day, it was not pole. It was go as quickly as you can safely to get back to camp for the night. They wouldn't even let us go to our tents when we got back because they knew we were so tired we wouldn't make it to dinner. So we went straight to the dinner camp on that night when we got down, and we mostly got there around dark. Peter's going to have a little bit of a talk about his experience that night. But the rest of the descent, we had 2 more days going approximately 10 kilometers each day down to get to the bottom. So even though you were tired, we had to go down, and those steps were challenging as well. A lot of them were dirt, a root at the edge of the dirt to hold the dirt in place so it wouldn't erode, and then another step down, and it was just natural. So it could be a 2-inch step or it could be a 2-foot step. So the guides really helped us explaining that. But once again, that part we had to go really pulley, trying not to twist an ankle. Most of us fell at least a couple times, especially the last day when there was a bit of light rain overnight, so things were more slippery. So going up was very tiring and challenging, but going down was still a challenge as well.
So I understand that Peter didn't want to stay at after he made the descent from the top, he decided he wanted to keep going. How did that happen, Peter?
How did that happen? Yeah. I did make it to the top, Uhuru Peak, and I just recently learned actually that Uhuru actually means freedom in Swahili, and the mountain was renamed after the 1964 independence revolution. So that was just a little factoid that I did not know. Anyways, on the way up, from the base camp, the whole day 7, going up and on the way down, my breathing was sounding like Eeyore the mule, kind of like, and I'm going, well, that's I don't usually breathe like that, but anyways, I don't have time to think about that because I just need to get to the top, and so I did make it. I did make it back to our base camp, if you will, the place where we slept on the night of day 6. And as Dave said, went straight to the mess tent. And but I was having some trouble breathing. I was one of the last ones down. I think between Dave and I, we were competing with each other to see who would be last. Anyhow, um, but yeah, so I was having some trouble breathing. I was coughing, and I just really wasn't comfortable at all. I radioed Lars to say, I'm having some trouble breathing here, and maybe, anyways, so he came by and they hooked me up to some oxygen. They carry oxygen with them, and that certainly made my body feel a little bit better. But I still could not breathe well. And so that evening, around 10 o'clock at night, they made the decision that I had some kind of altitude mountain sickness, and that I should go down to the next lower camp, which is called High Camp. So they packed me up onto a stretcher, which is basically like a great big oven rack, and with handles on both ends and one wheel in the middle, and wrapped me up in a sleeping bag with plastic because I think, as was mentioned earlier, by this point it was snowing. I think when they woke up the next morning, actually, there was like 3 inches of snow on the ground. So 10 o'clock at night, it's dark, it's cold, it's wet. They eight, nine porters and guides wheel me down the mountain on a stretcher from Barafu to High Camp, and they made it down around 2:30 in the morning. And I did sleep actually on the way down, so I guess that just speaks to how smooth the ride was, and probably also how sick I actually was.
Well, Peter, that's pretty good. I've got the sign from our host that we need to be wrapping it up. We've got a lot more that we could say. We'd like to talk about our visit to a blind school. I'd like to talk about some of the safari adventures that we had, but apparently we need to get going. And we thank you for the time that we've been able to have to share our story. Christina, are you there? You want to barge in here, or you give us another 2 hours?
I wish I could give you 2 more hours, everyone. This has been a very inspiring story about your travels and your journey. I thank you all so much for coming and telling us your amazing journey. On behalf of the Canada True Vision Cyber Club branch and everyone who came and joined us today, thank you guys so much. This has been amazing. I wish that we could continue on, but unfortunately, we can't. So thank you all so much. And I hope everyone has a great night. And I just think we should give everybody, these incredible people, a round of applause. So thank you so much. You guys are wonderful.